Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of Friday, April 5th. This meeting is being recorded. Okay, so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Sorry. All right, good evening. We are here to conduct and conclude the mid-year evaluation of the police chief. I'll invite the police chief forward and also our HR. I'm looking this way and here you are. Sorry about that. I don't think you have a microphone. Okay, we're going to need that. I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kamalo, thank you for regrouping us. If you could get us started, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, good evening. Through the chair, the Select Board has had several discussions regarding the police chief's evaluation. And a great deal of information has been shared, including the chief's self-evaluation, and also subsequent to the last meeting, we did seek directly input from board members. That information was directed to the HR office, and we gathered the information from the previous discussions, the chief's evaluation, as well as input from the board to compile a summary that we have shared with the board. Again, what is in front of the board is a compilation of a summary and not a collation of the individual words and statements from all parties identified. And the intention here being to capture the universe of the what. What is the work that the chief has done? In any performance evaluation, we always want to start from that point. And that work is tied to, in the chief's case, the three goals that were set for the chief and the department for FY24. And per the chief's contract, there are about 8 items that are then evaluated or referred to as part of discussing the evaluation. So that's the definition of the what. In any evaluation, we also look for opportunities to discuss and understand the why. Why do things happen the way they do? There are many factors that come into that discussion. At this last meeting, the board had begun discussing the why. And so what you're going to hear tonight perhaps is a very quick review of the why. And then in any evaluation, we focus on the how. And here in Hopkinton, over the years, we've really paid attention to the how. And the how relates to the behaviors that are exhibited when one is performing a specific task. Why is that important? It's important because it is tied to the values and the norms that we have set for the organization. We are looking for resolving the big issues for the community, having a positive impact on your team members and the community, collaborating, using any assignment or task to help others learn, whether it's your team members, yourself, or the community. We do not miss opportunities to bring additional resources to the town. We do not miss opportunities to find efficiencies and as well as process improvements, if possible. And most importantly, we also want to make sure that we continue to be passionate about local government and public service. And how we do that, and also how we do that and discuss that in the performance evaluation is focusing on whether, especially for senior leaders, were personally invested in helping the whole team and the community to perform better. So, in summary, we have the what, there has been a discussion of the why, and tonight I am encouraging the board to focus on the how.
Great, thank you. So I know that all board members provided feedback to the HR director, is that right? Yes. All right. Yep. Are you able to walk us through the feedback?
You want me to read through what's on here?
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I don't know if anybody else saw it before right now, but I'm only seeing it for the first time as well.
So for the first goal, which was to continue with the enhancement of community engagement, which, sorry. The first goal was to continue with the enhancement of community engagement, which is to continue growth of social media teams, skills, and abilities, seek engagement with town projects, boards, and committees. A synopsis of what we received was that substantial progress has been made, including the creation of a new social media team, presence at a wide range of town events, community policing outreach, and new events initiated by the department. Areas for improvement are the use of additional social media outlets such as Instagram and the creation and adherence to policies and procedures regarding department posts to ensure transparency, confidentiality, accountability, and attention to detail. With regards to the second goal of recruitment of qualified police officers and recruits, the comments included, as compiled, police officer recruitment started slow and developed beyond prior staffing levels. Once cadets complete the police academy, staffing will be at 24 out of 29 and projected to be at 27 in a couple months. With these achievements, an identified area of attention is the chief would need to be focused on retention as well, specifically focusing on officers' morale and job satisfaction. The list of training that staff are participating in, as listed in the chief's self-assessment, was impressive. It is anticipated that more progress on the compliance piece will be made on this goal as the police department reaches full staffing levels. A good start has been made and the groundwork has been laid. In addition, the chief is planning to roll out a field training officer initiative with Sergeant Bouchard. There has been an increased social media presence by Hopkinton Police Department. Social media still needs improvement. This is a difficult time for recruitment, and that is social media as it relates to recruitment. The third goal was promotion and professional development of command staff. And comments compiled speak to a false start with marked recent progress. The town has Advertise the deputy chief position. Filling the lieutenant position is in progress with final interviews scheduled for 4/16/24. 2 sergeant's promotions were completed in February 2024, albeit with the union filing a grievance. To support the administrative team, the town hired a consultant to address specific executive level projects. The department has expanded training opportunities for officers. Sergeants have assumed additional duties, achieving on-the-job training. The department has also produced a draft succession plan. Overcoming promotions delays and bringing in outside extra help to address the priority strategic aspect of the department's mission took much work and was marked by missed communication opportunities. So then those were the 3 goals that had been established. The next portion is with regard to the performance expectations areas that are in the contract. And those are command management of any type of police service incident, budgetary and financial administration, personnel administration, supervision and leadership, staff development and training, public relations, policy execution, and interaction with the town manager and board, as well as other governmental officials, boards, committees, and general public. So for each one of those, I will tell you what the overall results were given the comments. So command management of any type of police service incident, that we have a safe town and opportunities to improve managing visible events. Budgetary financial administration, excellent progress. Personnel administration, team building is in progress. Supervision and leadership, managing through crisis and leadership and morale need improvement. Staff development and training, good progress on staff development and training needs tracking. Public relations needs further development. Policy execution, inadequate policy implementation, drug and alcohol testing, accreditation, Pro-Phoenix, body-worn cameras, and department evaluation. Interaction with town manager and board, as well as other government officials, boards, committees, and general public. On target interactions with board and town manager. Additional comments at the end include the chief has demonstrated leadership during this last couple of years by steering the department during difficult situations. His presence at the community events and organizing police events with the community projects projects a positive impact and image of the department. With progress in hiring, now focus needs to be more on retention. A periodic employee survey and feedback mechanism would be helpful for ongoing pulse checking and new opportunities. Need to continue to focus on the new deputy chief and lieutenant hiring and training and complete the ongoing succession plan. With some of the recent challenging situations, despite progress, some key projects seem to have slowed down. The chief will now need to focus on these more closely. Also, there are some additional areas that came up from the community that may need special attention. These include plan and timely execution of the body camera, seek stakeholder help from board town manager as needed, completion of Pro-Phoenix software setup, explore and plan for GPS enablement in cars as appropriate. Review all protocols to bring them up to date as needed. Establish a more robust communication framework with select board and town manager for periodic progress review and foster more collaboration.
If I may, again, what you heard is a summary of the input that we received, including the chief's self-evaluation. In that input were examples that the board may decide to discuss as part of refining what you have heard to be the what. The board may also engage in any discussion regarding the why. I think what I have heard so far is that the last 2 years were very difficult years for all of us, and that the chief had to deal with those challenges. And as a department head, he did report to the board and the public that he had to make some administrative decisions. And some of those decisions resulted in the delays that have been recounted in the evaluation discussions. And so again, the challenge for the board now is, if there are any examples for the what, you may want to include them in the discussion. If there is any need to go further into the why, now is the opportunity to have that discussion. And then thirdly, I would really encourage the board to focus on the how. How was the work delivered based on the factors that I enumerated earlier? Any questions? And so, through the chair, one more thing. It needs to be said, this is the board's evaluation of the chief. I'm expecting and encouraging and respectfully suggesting that the bulk of the discussion be the individual board members stating how you evaluate the how in the chief's execution of the goals, as well as the 8 criteria that were listed. And if there are any instances where the board seeks clarification from staff, meaning the chief, is available to answer those questions. But again, it is the board's evaluation of the chief.
So, to my board, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to go through the items, or?
So, personally, I
Yeah.
think that we've done the what and the why. I think we need to focus today on the how was the work delivered. And I would suggest that we go through each goal, and each of us has an opportunity to comment on it. And just kind of go down through the list.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I would just add that we find a little bit of time, if possible, in this session to also talk about the future and tuning how we are going to progress on these targets and other aspirational items through rest of the year and beyond, so short-term and long-term, and to level set on some of the expectations where things may not have been clear enough. So I think that would be helpful too.
You, Jill.
Well, I'm reading this, and we all wrote our opinions on the various parts, and I can see some of each one of us in it, and I really think that we're making really good progress, and we just need to define future goals, for the rest of this year.
Amy.
Yeah, I agree with Stefan and Shahidul that we should probably go through each one, because we each wrote out our detailed comments too, and go through how to move forward. Okay. So I generally agree with Irfan and Shahidul that we should go through each goal now that we've seen them all compiled together and add any additional comments that we need to add and figure out how we're going to move forward.
Okay, so I'm happy to lead through the comments, or I'm happy to I don't know what the process is. I'm happy to just start.
Yes, again, if the focus is on the how, this may be helpful for the board. Given that we are discussing the work of a senior leader, the number one point is what aspects of the execution exhibited strategic thinking, consistently raising and exceeding expectations, finding efficiencies, improving processes without being directed. How did the chief solve the big issues or find new opportunities without needing direction? How did the chief elevate his work as an expert in the area that he was working on? How did he share knowledge as a process as well as mentoring others regularly? How did he help others be more productive by improving the work environment? How did he communicate effectively across and outside the organization? How did he attract additional support and resources? And finally, how did he personally invest himself in helping the whole team to perform better?
Is there any possibility you have that written down so that we could have it in front of us?
Yeah, I can have that very quickly.
I was taking notes, and I'm pretty quick, but you're faster, so. I'll just wait 1 second for that. So it occurs to me, Chief, that you won't have it if he emails it. Can we make a copy for you so you have it? It's hard for me to interact with a list of things without seeing.
That would be, to the chair, or to you, thank you, that would be helpful, because I understand it, but
I
I've
do
seen
too.
it before, and it would be helpful, thank you.
I do too. So we're just going to take a minute. We're going to be thoughtful about this.
So I've emailed it to board members. Mary Jo, you need a copy?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I'll take a copy as well.
I was just going to say, just actually make copies if you don't mind. I know it's trees, but we're just going to have to. Because Jessica might like when I don't see a laptop in front of you and.
I'll go get it.
Jessica, thank you for doing this work for us today.
Thank you, Mr. Kamala.
Thank you.
So I can be on one meeting. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kamala. So the first goal, we'll start right at the top. The first goal is to continue with the enhancement of community engagement, continue the growth of social media team skills and abilities, and seek engagement with town projects, boards, and committees. So I don't know if we want to just start at one end and go to the other. Mary Jo, do you want to start?
Well, actually, I think that as far as media goes, we have made quite a bit of progress. I see the police department and their events and the things that they're at in the media way more than I used to. And I think that that's a very positive. And I like to see what they're doing, and I think we can use more of that. Social media is making really good progress. I see the police everywhere now. They didn't used to always be, but it seems as if they are participating in all community activities. I've seen them on the Common, I see them at the senior center, serving lunch even, and having what they do for the seniors, and what they do is sometimes not always in the media, but they are definitely participating more in community events than I have seen them ever in the past. I think that's a positive.
I'll echo what Mary Jo said, that I've definitely seen a much increased social media presence and also better social media posting, where they're getting more likes, more shares. So that's a sign that they're doing it a little better, more engaging photos. So I appreciate seeing that. And then for board and committee outreach, I know, using his leadership skills, he's, instead of the chief coming to the Commission on Disability, he sent one of his sergeants. And they listened to us, and they provided some things that they could do that we didn't necessarily know they could do until they came to our meeting. So that was really helpful. And yeah, I just think social media is always evolving and needs improvements, but I think it is a good way to reach people. And I definitely see police presence, in a positive way, not to be a threat or anything, but to in cultural events around town, but just to engage with the residents and the community. So, and I've heard that from community groups that they really appreciate having the chief or someone from his staff coming to events.
I should ask, do you have any questions for the chief on the social media?
No, I just want them to continue to improve. It's been good. It's been pretty good this last year or two.
So what would you see as an improvement if they were going to target, benchmark an improvement?
I think they can continue doing what they're doing, but I think we need more recognition and more media about what they do and where they're going to be, and how they're participating in various meetings townwide, and I think events, particularly events sponsored by the police department, the pizza party, which not only included all the children on the common this year, but the library was included in it, and all of the businesses along Main Street were included in it, and that was organized by the police department. The police department's holiday party for the seniors every year, and then their bocce games with the fire department and the seniors, and they do get a little bit of recognition, but I think that they could have a lot more, and I think that there are other things of that type that we could develop.
Sorry, Amy, I didn't want to, I just wondered if there was any questions I hadn't asked.
Oh, yeah, so you want areas of improvement?
Yep.
Okay, so even though they've been doing a lot more social media than they used to and more engaging, I do think they could still do more. I think Instagram would be a good place to especially reach younger people. And I think if they could post daily something to social media, that would be ideal. But I realize this is not their number one job priority. That's not what they necessarily do every day. But if they have time, I think posting daily would be great if it's possible. And then I just continuing to seek out new groups in town that they might want to go to events for to get to know new people and new groups in town.
Okay, I'll go down to Irfan.
So I don't have a lot to add to that. I'm not on social media, so I can't really comment on what I have seen. But I know that the chief's put together a team to work on social media and get the word out as to what's going on around town. And as far as community outreach, again, I see them at all town events. Areas for improvement, I think you can never be too involved with the community, and keep pushing it, and keep up with the social media presence.
Any questions?
No questions.
Shadu?
Thank you. I would echo my colleagues' comments pretty much. I've seen Chief to be omnipresent almost in all events, social and from senior center to various cultural, social, and school events. And I was talking to some of my friends and colleagues in other towns, and I also have attended other town events. I think this is almost, not as common as omnipresence as Chief's activities are. So kudos to that, to Chief and the team. And I think social media I follow, and I see a lot of interesting, good, engaging comments and posts, and sometimes with humor, which is always good. So keep up with that. And I think I reach to the youngsters a little bit with other channels, Instagram, and there are always new ones coming up. We can't jump into all of them, but some of the prominent ones that could reach some of our younger town residents, high school kids and others. And I want to also mention the pizza party that was arranged for the high school kids. That was very creative. And I also noticed that it was organized by a team, and I believe that shows how you shared the knowledge, process, and mentored, and it's an ongoing thing. So certainly encouraged to do that more. But altogether, I see the footprint of strategic thinking as to how to go about and build community trust, engage with community, and I would say we are in a great shape on community policing at its best, with a wonderful police department, dedicated and engaged chief and police officers. So kudos to that. Another area we could look at, as I was thinking, is we also would want to have police appreciation more visibly, maybe from the board, or maybe something with the community as a whole to celebrate. So the officers also feels more appreciated and visible.
Any questions?
Not at this time. I think we covered quite a bit on this.
Okay. So I see the increased social media presence as a strength as well, overall. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you how we ensure our processes and policies address new learnings, problems, concerns, and ways to secure the output of information when we are outputting to the community.
That's a very important question, and thank you for the opportunity to address it. When we're communicating with the public, we have to be very deliberate and intentional and understand that we're talking to a very broad group and community. As we all do with our employees, we need to have them trained, and especially when they're going into something high risk, such as work that the police officers do every day and the work that the social media team does online. To that effect, we need to train them, and we have partnered with several vendors to provide the training, and we have a policy in town on social media, and we have a kind of an authorization level for what different tiered people are allowed to post. And so far, for social media, it's worked, and it's a continual ongoing project. Just because someone went to a training, new case law comes out all the time, and it has to be a continual process. We also have a partner with a public relations firm who is always available and is offering training, and works with the team directly.
And specifically, when we make a mistake, how do we, or have we corrected for that?
Well, that's basic management. You have to first fact find and determine what exactly happened, and then identify any areas of weakness in policy or practice, address them, and work towards ensuring that it doesn't happen again. There's no guarantees in life, but continual improvement is the key.
Did you want to add anything, Chief, to the general topic of social media?
I think that we have made a kind of a paradigm shift within the organization. I certainly identified the shortcomings of relying on a person or a small group to accomplish too much. And I've learned and the value of training people sideways as well in duties, so that there's not an independent person that is a single point of failure for the organization. And through that, we've shifted the model of how we build these teams. So even a person on a bottom tier of an organization has at least awareness and some skills at the next level, and we're always training up so there's people in position to fill gaps, as well as laterally, so that if someone becomes ill and has an extended leave, there's always people that can step in and help.
Maybe you could give us an example.
Sure. So in the training division, training, typically we rely heavily on the training council and outside vendors for our training. What we're building now, Sergeant O'Neill took over training in mid-year last year, and we're building an organizational structure where he's working. He was the instructor for most of the topics, where he's working to bring in other instructors, and he's working to be a team leader not actually doing the functioning work, but he has the skill set to do the functioning work. And the functioning work will ideally be pushed all the way down to patrol. So I met with a patrolman today to talk about this and get his feedback. And, you know, there are areas, for instance, where we spoke about the need for, we're bringing in a software, we're implementing a software for accreditation that is going to manage and track. So as we've spoken to before, we have the policy, we have our proofs, what they're called, that say we did it, and this software does it all. So if I reissue a policy, we all sign off on ethics and sexual harassment regularly at work. Well, in this software, what it would look as, you would see the policy, any changes or amendments would be highlighted, it would be sent out to the officers, and then they would be reminded if they hadn't signed, they would be pushed up to their direct report, and then eventually it would come to my desk if it wasn't completed. So you would think, well, maybe that's a sergeant's role, but in my conversations, maybe it isn't. Because that officer is managing a software, not a lot of work. Once it's set up, the beauty of it is the setup will take a while, but then automatically things will occur. But they're not going to be in a supervisory role. They're never going to go to a peer and say, you didn't sign off. The mechanism is in place. So I think that's a good example.
That is a good example of training and expanding your reach. I appreciate that. Who is going to be, I'm sorry if I missed it, if you just said it. Who is going to be in charge of managing that software? You said it doesn't necessarily have to be a sergeant.
That hasn't been identified.
Okay, but you'll identify somebody that's going to.
So, yeah, to expound on that. So you'd have Sergeant O'Neill overseeing the entire program with the understanding of how each aspect works. And then with each individual area, so say we're talking defensive tactics or firearms, there'd be a lead, and then there'd be the actual people who execute, the trainers underneath them. Then you come to a different column, and there would be policy review, and that would be a category. Law, in-service training, and building a multi-layered up and down and lateral, horizontal network.
So I know this will be covered later. I just want to assure you I won't recover it, just because we shifted topics a little bit. How do you benchmark and track within your department how each individual officer is accomplishing his training, his or her training? My apologies.
So at the state level, there's a software called Arcadis, and it provides our training. It's both a tool that we can watch training, read training, and tracks our mandatory accomplishments for each year. So we're required to have 40 hours of in-service. We're required to take CPR. We're required to train with our firearm. Those, that is managed by the state, and Police Officers Standards and Training Commission has access to it and directly interacts with them to ensure that we're maintaining our core certification. Beyond that, within the department currently, we have an add-on for policy sign-off that we've been using, but it's an add-on to a scheduling software. And this new product will shift us to that. And then, so all the mandatory requirements have to be done. Then we keep, and we have, we're looking at a couple things to track overall training, but we don't want to be duplicitous. So as we grow within our implementation of Power DMS, we'll make a determination if we're going to use that to track all training. Along the lines of training, we have a rank and assignment training tier system that we've established. So the training coordinator has authorization to approve staff members based on their rank to go to training. There's certain triggers the way they would come to me and ask. But for instance, something community policing related. If any police officer who wants to go to bike school can go to bike school. They don't have to come and get approval for that. We will, of course, watch the budget, but But, you know, a patrolman might not go to a one-week executive command level school. Because it's not within that tiered structure. And that structure's laid out and it's available to all the sergeants.
And does that all fall under Officer O'Neill to track all of that and approve and
So
manage?
it's, right now, what I did years ago, prior to becoming chief, is it's really tracked on from a Google form to a Google spreadsheet, so you can capture the whole picture. So an officer requests training, or if they're sent to training, that request form is filled out. It goes into a sheet. Then that sheet, it's then put onto another spreadsheet with each individual officer and all their training accomplishments.
Thank you.
Then there's another spreadsheet that shows, say, all the sergeants and how they've progressed through their leadership training.
Death by spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And are there, this is a question I hadn't thought of before, so I apologize if I'm taking people far afield, but are there triggers and markers to indicate when people are in danger of missing their requirements? The requirements are all managed by the state, so they would notify you or the department or the individual if they were in danger of not having their qualifying.
So a lot of it is on a reoccurring calendar. So we partner with Holliston and Sherburne and other towns to deliver some of our in-person learning because to accommodate their particular learning preference. And as well as we can do most everything to meet the state law standards for the current curriculum for the training council. You know, certain practical skills can't be taught online, obviously. That occurs, and in that portal, we all can see it. So each sergeant watches their team, as well as I can jump in at any time and see and check on people to see if they're falling behind. But before the end of the year, events are occurring, so it would stand out if an officer did not go to their assigned training. Because the schedule is published, everybody knows, they would have to have called in and said, I'm out today. So that's very apparent if someone would have missed an issue that would jeopardize their certification.
Thank you. Okay. The next item is recruitment of qualified police officers and recruits. I think that I don't have to read all of it. So I'll switch it up just so somebody doesn't always start. Shahidul, do you want to start us off?
If I may.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt the floor. Before we leave the last one, I just want to make sure for Jessica's purpose, here's what I heard, that in executing this goal, the chief exhibited the following core competencies in terms of how. Strategic thinking relative to community engagement, generally positive impact on the team. Thirdly, afforded the team the opportunity to learn. And then in terms of improvements, diversifying the medium that is used to reach out. And then secondly, just being consistent in communicating through social media. Did I capture that correctly? For Jessica's notes.
I think so.
I believe so.
I was really well done. I would just add a process for corrective action when problems occur.
Exactly. Thank you.
Through the chair. What was the last part?
A corrective action process for when missteps and problems happen.
I want to just add to that too, because I just wanted to clarify, and I'm pretty sure that the town, and I assume the police is part of this, subscribes to that archive social media service, right? So that all the posts are captured in case there's a misstep or something, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Gurizetti?
IT.
Director Gurizetti has all of our accounts on Archive Social.
Yeah, I just know for myself at work, we got a really serious comment on social media that needed to be reported to the police, but of course the person then deleted it. So we had that Archive Social record that we could pass along.
Correction, it's IT and innovation.
Is that a new department name for?
New department name?
The unveiling.
All right. Okay, so recruitment of qualified police officers. Shadul, do you want to start?
Sure. So I think Jessica read it earlier, and our view is that now we are heading towards a good number and good staffing level, although there was slowness historically. So I'm glad to see that progress. And we need to, in my view, focus now to retention a lot more. And that means employee morale, employee satisfaction, and also training, coaching for their career paths. And that is what I think through the year and years to come, we'd like to see more. And if you have any way to start capturing these with a little more key metrics and trends so that we can monitor collectively and help where and when you need help, that would be, I think, good for future for the entire process. Other than that, we also want to see the progress and the open positions that are in progress on those. So the deputy chief is a very critical one that's already posted, and we have help from the recruitment agencies. So we need to have that closed quickly and gracefully, and then onboarding and making sure the succession plan, succession training starts and is in place. Same with the lieutenant. And I know you mentioned you're working on that. You have a plan that you shared earlier. With these pending items, I think you'll be in a better position to lay out the rest of the succession plan. And we want to see that for the overall organization, and time to time we can checkpoint on those. That would be helpful. But overall, very pleased to see the progress on the recruitment and good progress.
Irfan.
So I echo what Mr. Mannon had said. I think in terms of like strategic thinking, I think you've done a wonderful job in recruiting new officers, but also we need to pay more attention to morale within the department. And people are going to leave, not just because of poor morale, they may leave for other reasons, backfilling those positions. And I think having regular interviews, the stay interviews, to see, okay, what are you happy about? What are you unhappy about? And, where are the needs for improvement? So I think retention at this point is, because it seems as though we have officers coming on board, and I think we're well on our way, but I think retention is kind of, becomes more of a key, so we don't fall behind the way we did before.
Any questions, Irfan? Oh, sorry.
Do you think there are any areas for efficiencies in finding new recruits? Is there something that you would do differently?
I touched on it briefly, and we've talked about this in prior meetings. Recruitment is extremely hard in law enforcement. The candidate pool is much smaller than it was in the past. It's a constant discussion in trade journals, in training. It comes up in every meeting. I wish I could say I had a silver bullet for it, but I don't. And it's got to be a primary focus. It has to be. Both finding and keeping employees is critical for all industries right now. And I really think that the stay interviews will help. And as we move forward and we make promotions and people have opportunities, and that also is fantastic for retention. So focusing on both, I think focus on the total picture is important. As far as, but I'm reading, I'm attending training, I'm sending sergeants to training, with getting them out in the public and just trying to attack it from every possible angle. I think that's the only approach. It's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it is really hard, and I appreciate all the efforts that you've made. I don't have any suggestions for how you can improve on it, but I would encourage you to maybe talk to other police chiefs as to what they're doing, and maybe you can, pick their brains there.
Yeah, I've been speaking with them. In fact, I spoke with one the other day who lost 2 last week. Is down 25% of his department, and right now the marketplace is towards sending the people to the police academy, which is an opportunity to bring a lot of diversity into the fold, which has always been a goal. And by opening it up to non-academy people, it actually will also help with that as well.
Thank you.
Amy?
Yeah, I will echo what has been said, that it's really great that we're getting back on track and you've been able to recruit and hire some young people. I think up to 6 in this tough climate is excellent. But I do think we need to focus now on retention and morale, as the others have said, keeping these people and making them feel part of the team, giving them more training as they want it so they can move up. And then perhaps, if possible, maybe we could get some lateral hires as well, because we're going to have a lot of very young people, but maybe we could get some in-between level new officers too, because we'll have a couple more spots, I think, still open. But I think that would be the goal for me anyway, for going forward.
Any questions?
I don't think so.
Mary Jo?
I just want to encourage the team aspect, and I want to encourage that when you have these monthly meetings or weekly meetings, that they're very open, that you allow dissent from the rank and file and from the offices, so that they feel like, that their opinions are taken to heart and mean something, even if they don't get acted on because of, they don't belong there. But people need to feel like they can speak their mind and say their piece, and I think that goes a long way to retention of officers. If they can feel that they can say what they want or say what they need to say and respect each other for it, that goes a long way to retention.
Thank you.
That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I have been encouraged as well that our recruitment is up. It's a really exciting opportunity to have new people, and especially young people. And it's also, I've said this before, it also presents, and I don't mean this in any way negative, it presents a risk. So how do you structure your onboarding and your processes to ensure that you're building a team and boosting morale?
There's a lot to that question. I could just start with the selection, I guess, and onboarding. We, in our interview process, have identified type of person we're looking for, and that begins with that. That's the best safeguard we have. And then as we move through the other aspects of the process, including the background check, I can tell you there's a long list of people who their background is done and they don't come forward to you. We have very high standards, and I think that's the foundation of it. And it's finding the right people. And if you repeat the latter part of that, please.
It's a test. I think that I asked, and I apologize if I'm scrambling it, how you will ensure that you are building your team, accounting for all those new people, and boosting and building morale. How do you actually operationalize that? How do you do that in your department?
Sure. So, I mean, we're a very regulated industry, and the officers are from day one are held to a very high standard, and in compliance with laws and rules and regulations. They have access to a great deal of support and resources, including the most important person in the organization, which is the sergeant. If you think about we're a paramilitary organization, think about what a sergeant does and asks of their direct reports. And sergeants are the key in the organization, that they're attentive, supportive, watching, and that they understand that their role is to make sure everybody above them, up to me, knows if an employee is struggling or if there's an issue. And they're very good about it. And our organization as a whole is very good about holding each other accountable and speaking openly when asked about anything.
A tiny bit off script, but it jumps into my head. How do you, just in light of events of yesterday, which we probably should have said first, congratulations to the department and the fire department for responding to a very difficult situation, as well as it could possibly probably be responded to. How do you make sure, I was just thinking in terms of morale and making sure you're holding folks personally together if they need extra supports. How is that operationalized for the police department?
So it begins, peer support. Is that what you're talking? Wellness, care? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's formal and informal peer support. When at the base level, if someone is believed to be seen extreme trauma, that last night was, the care support begins. I can share with you that myself and other sergeants spoke with every member involved. I spoke with witnesses, and there's also a formal peer support response that can occur and will occur, and that's through outside public safety personnel who will offer to help, and at the level that the employee is willing to participate. But the offers are there. We have a culture of checking in on each other. We have a culture of sharing if we think that someone was significantly impacted, and that's ongoing.
And I did say this last night when we spoke, and I know I didn't ask my fellow select board members, but don't have to you and your department and to the fire chief and his department, if you need supports that aren't currently available to you, we want to know what they are and we want to know how to provide them.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did speak with the fire chief last night. He's offered to take lead on bringing in the peer support. We'll do it, and I will reach out if we need anything.
Great. How do you, or maybe it's easier to answer at what, this is an extension of the what maybe. How do you identify key metrics for building morale and developing your team? And how do you, once you what those metrics are, how do you monitor them over time? How do you benchmark the work?
For building morale, I guess
And team, building morale and team.
I guess a lot of that would be better documenting feedback and conversations in a way that doesn't betray the trust of those conversations, and finding ways for people to give feedback. When you start taking notes in a lot of these areas, it tends to put a chilling effect on the conversation. So we'd have to, what I think I need to build an area where I could build is learning and researching and developing a way to do that. Right now, it's mostly informal and based on relationships.
Yeah, I think and again, we kind of go through it happens, right, the continuum, but I think later in the comments, a feedback mechanism that's de-identified, that is predictable and transparent, so it's reported out. Everybody gets a chance to discuss it and know how everybody's feeling, might be a good metric, a good measure.
So maybe if a model was developed and just working with you in conversationally, maybe the model was developed where we take those stay interviews, identify key things, key words, and then incorporate it into maybe an executive summary where confidentiality is protected, I think might be a way we do it. I would be leaning on HR to help me to design a tool like that.
I would think it's a pretty typical mechanism in the HR world that would just need to be translated for your purposes. And then just in my professional world, and I've heard it a couple of times in context here as well, the constituencies, the stakeholders who participate really need to hear back what the results are, right? So sometimes we gather all the results and we do what we do, but people really need that transparency, and they need to know how their feedback, their investment in the process might be translating into forward motion and different goals and things like that. The last question I have, we mentioned the succession plan after a substantial delay. We did get that in March. Maybe you can walk us through how you will build that out. I don't remember, candidly, if you have a deadline in there. Do you remember if you put a deadline in finalizing and formalizing a succession plan strategy? I don't remember. But how will you track, first of all, build it out and track how do you measure success? How will you know it's where you need it to be on time?
Well, there will need to be, that's a draft. It was formulated based on a review, a conversation about where we are today. To formalize it, it will need to include benchmarks and objectives, just as any plan. We still have a lot going on right now, so I don't set too tight of a deadline, but I can assure you that it's an ongoing and continual process with the items that we already have identified that would be involved in succession planning. Training is ongoing, promotions are ongoing. So things are being done. Nothing's on hold, but to develop the plan and metrics and a way to show that it was accomplished is what we're building now. Rest assured that work is being done every day. In fact, our 3 sergeants went to sergeant school this week.
So I'm just going to push back a little on that answer respectfully and just say that we know that if you don't benchmark it, it's so easy for it to slip and not get accomplished, and then you find yourself in a position where you don't have a result to communicate to your supervisors, right? So I really recommend that you hard benchmark that plan and be prepared to share what those benchmarks are, and then just follow through.
Yes.
Okay.
If I may,
Yes, thank you. That's right.
Yeah, through the chair, I know that this topic is important to the residents here in Hopkinton, and through my office work with the board and your team, Chief, there are a couple efforts that I think we should give you the opportunity to speak to. You have stated that recruitment is a big challenge. So two things come to mind. Would you mind speaking to how you have used collaboration to address that issue? And then secondly, addressing the intersection of morale and recruitment challenges. How have you specifically communicated that to your team, to the board, and to the residents?
So morale is critical, especially when attracting people to the department. Our best successes have come when members of the department have recruited and brought people into the department, because typically they are of the type of person we want, and they come here because they believe it's a good place to work. As far as communicating with the residents, could always be better with that. Communicating in every forum is a constant struggle, and I need to do more with that. With regards to collaboration, we're not a huge organization. Our social media team is really the collection of the most invested members of the department, the most skilled and diverse. And it also includes of the police department and the communications department. Many members of the social media team also are very active in recruitment. So that collaborative effort between Detective Sergeant Van Ralton, who leads recruitment, and Sergeant Burchard's social media team, the people are in both areas and working on both objectives. And so the collaboration among them is very tight. And as I expressed before, it's an exciting team to walk into a meeting with. They come to the meeting prepared, and they have boundless and endless ideas. And so for collaboration, it's a matter of getting the right people together who have the same common cause and mission.
All set?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us what you heard? That's what I thought was coming next.
Can I try or should I go? Yes. Here's what I have heard. That the issue of recruitment is a strategic priority for the department. That most recently gains have been achieved. It now falls on your leadership team to address retention, morale, as well as for you to strengthen the collaboration that has gotten us to this point where we are hiring officers, and to find opportunities to communicate effectively with the community, your team, and your partners.
Thank you for that. I have a follow-up question. Exactly. It falls to the leadership team to address retention and morale. Because the leadership team, as we know, is going to be so new, how will you think through and structure that and report out on that at a consistent basis?
I think before I take action, we would need to probably come together and identify what we as a team have for resources, whether it's peers, reaching out and reaching out to other chiefs and deputies and lieutenants that they may know, and get some feedback and come up with some ideas. And then, as is the common theme in this conversation of this evening, is identifying some goals and objectives and some metrics to measure that. We see it's obviously a prime focus, and I would want to do this. Everything we do in the beginning as these new department head leaders are established is going to be about building the team, and to do it collaboratively and not push down, but to listen and lean on and develop and build as a team, all of us.
So again, I'm pushing back respectfully. All those things, right? All those things are true. Really, my question, and it's okay if you don't answer it tonight. My question really is how you operationalize that, how you actually put the building blocks in place and measure for success. The real critical. I would say this is maybe one of the priority tasks for the next 6 months, and maybe I'm wrong, and there's other tasks that are the priority, but how will you make sure, what are the resources you need, how will you use those resources, and how will you measure success in onboarding either new people or people to new positions, so that your leadership team is able to then, right, build the rest of your team and boost morale. So it's a big bite, right? That's a big bite. So how are you gonna? And I'm not asking you to tell me this tonight, but I do think that it is reasonable for this board to know when you're gonna deliver a plan for how you're gonna do that, and it's upon us, right? These hirings are underway. So what do you think about what works in terms of a deliverable to really structure that process for you?
Well, if it's deliverable, I would look forward to further conversation on what you would want that deliverable to look like, and I'd look towards guidance and some expectations as we move forward to develop it. I wouldn't want Professor to just come forward with it independently.
I guess it really is, that's fine. I wonder if there's a resource that's more that does this professionally. It's just a.
To do, if I can do that.
I just, it's a big task and a big priority, and it sets the tone for your team going forward in a really substantial way. Okay. All right. Promotion. Oh, go ahead.
Chair.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. Actually, it would be relevant for the next one. One, and related to the moral. Do we have any coaching and mentoring program in place, formally or informally, that could also help you sense the pulse of the people's morale and help them out?
Did you say sense the pulse?
Sense the pulse, yeah.
Each sergeant has a team of people that they're expected to mentor, as well as always in any organization, there's informal mentors that have, once the employees identify particular strengths in an individual, they'll go to. The newer employees are very open and candid with each other, and they seek out each other's help, and I see that that happens often. Often when I speak to an officer, they recount sharing conversations with other officers. So within the organization, each sergeant would have a mentor selection of officers. Typically, then that would be the lieutenant would do that with the sergeants. Also, I've always made myself available to mentor. When I hear anything, I typically follow it up. I had a conversation with an employee last night at 11:30 at night at the station and spent some time because I heard something, and I had a conversation at 2 o'clock because I heard something, just to make myself there and always be able to counsel them. It's not a product or a program. It goes more towards core culture of being connected and developing relationships.
Thank you.
But if someone knows a tool, I'd welcome it.
In terms of tool, sorry, just
No,
follow up
yeah,
on that. In terms of tool, I think the employee satisfaction survey type of tool certainly also gives you the opportunity for checking the pulse with HR's help. That could be one area you could look at. And it may not be applicable, but I would be happy to do some research. In the hospital systems, you also have huge retention challenges with physicians and nurses. So one thing we do is we measure the burnout rate. And there are various metrics, like we call it pajama time, that how many people or professionals are working outside the regular work hours, who's working too long hours, who's working odd shifts too often. So those gives, a data-driven picture of who might be stressed out a little more than others. I'm sure there are creative ways to look at it and might be tools available. I'll do some research.
Thank you. And another thing an area where I want to look into is there's a concept of early intervention where there is actually a software tracking and certain events get entered into the system and it actually will trigger certain other events. So if an officer goes to an extremely traumatic call like last night, it might trigger the peer support system. If an officer has 3 crashes, it might trigger it. If there's a certain agreed threshold of sick time out, and there's these different metrics within the early intervention system that can trigger different things, not necessarily discipline, but from a mindset of protecting and caring for the employee.
That sounds great. Yeah, something in that sort.
Okay. The next category is promotion and professional development of command staff. Amy, do you want to start?
Sure. So I think this is the area that probably comes with it the most challenge going forward, because things have been understandably delayed, but we're going to need to work on that going forward. So let's see. And then, so we have promoted the 2 sergeants, we have the lieutenant coming up, but we've had some concerns from the union each time, so hopefully we can work through that with HR and get the right processes in place so that everyone's on the same page about the promotions. Let's make sure if I have anything else. But I do think the long list of training that you provided, that you're making available, will go a long way to help with the promotion, professional development, because some of these new officers might have different interests and might take a training that no one else has taken. So I think there's some ways you can move forward with that. Let's see. Yeah, I just think, it's an area for improvement and the challenge moving forward, but I think now that we're getting the staff filled in, I think we'll be able to move forward.
All set? Mary Jo?
I think for these positions, we have to have a very open and a very wide criteria for each position. And because it used to be where you got promoted based on length of time served, and basically, that's it. And it shouldn't be that anymore. We need to have a real look at the individuals, all individuals who apply, and look at the personality, look at the mental aspects, look at everything that they'll bring to the position, because we've obviously made mistakes and in the past in who we're picking for various positions. So I think that we have to kind of develop a very wide and big criteria for advancement in all areas.
Do you want to ask a question in there, Mary Jo? Like how will we institute processes that might change how we have done it in the past?
Well, I think we
And
have
make sure
to,
we're
think about it, but I would ask the department to come up with their criteria. The rank and file to be involved, and at their meetings to talk about what they want to see in their officers and their promoted individuals in the various ranks. What would you like to see as the criteria for this rank and that rank? And I think that they will probably come up with some very good ideas on their own to present to us.
For fun.
So I think once we fill the lieutenant, deputy, a lot of this is going to become more routine. It's going to become part of the process. I think the idea here is to take some off your plate. And in doing that, once we onboard the new deputy and lieutenant, I think that kind of gives more opportunity further down the chain. And I think that also will help in promotions within, where each, various officers are going to find areas of interest and seek promotions in there. I understand that there was a delay in, getting the lieutenant and deputy on board, but I think now that we have a process in place, I think, I look forward to having them on board and then developing a plan for growth.
Any questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I reserve the right, though.
No, I think I covered it earlier conversations as well, that now the process is in place for two major leadership roles under you, open and in the hiring process. So certainly hiring the right talent is the first big task, which you have initiated, and with some help as well. That's good. And once, and in the meantime, in parallel, I'm sure, but need to also start planning on structuring the succession plan and training and others as needed, not only for those two positions or for your succession, but also at every layer of the organization. And that'll help building that stable future, which we all definitely want to establish. And second is also it'll be motivating for the force in general. Everyone would know their career paths and their, being cared and nurtured. So just more, it's all related. That also relates to retention and all that. So it's all together, and glad to see the progress, and would like to see more focus on this in the coming days.
Thank you.
Okay. So this was the topic of a great part of my concerns. I do sincerely appreciate that progress was made. I have a question about how we ensure that we don't have those kind of gaps or delays. How do we incorporate necessary lessons learned?
I think that one of the things that I would want to do is when we have issues that aren't public, and there are restraints or constraints, we collectively need to find a mechanism where we're all on the same page and we all have the shared information. And I think Mr. Kamalo has been a tremendous leader in doing that, but I think we need to really focus on it. And I think we need to keep so there isn't a gap in knowledge among people. Decisions that were made and had to be made, and that ended up getting us here are unfortunate that we are here, but you can't say that we're never going to be in that same position. But if we are, better communication and working together to find a way to get through it faster. Part of the thing is sometimes things move way too slow. We've seen in the topics that we've all talked about are dragging on for 18 months, 2 years, and we can't let the organization stall because of it. We have to find a path through it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that is what we feel we see or saw. So how do you, trying to ask the question without using all the same words, but what are the building blocks, or how do we operationalize? How do we, so it's an interesting dynamic where 5 of us are the supervisors, which is a dynamic that doesn't happen in almost any other situation. So the communication, most methods of communication are very formalized, right? How do we make sure that and we don't have day-to-day line of sight, and how do we make sure that you who have day-to-day line of sight are easily able to communicate with us when we have responsibility but not that day-to-day line of sight? How do we do that?
How do you all have day-to-day operations?
How do we communicate so that we don't have a gap like this again? I'm really talking about lessons learned. How do we make sure that you have a way of driving support from your supervisors for your department's needs?
I think I understand the question.
Well, do your
I think I
best.
understand. I'll start with example. I have a chief who I respect greatly, and I've been reaching out to chiefs and asking them how they interact with their board, the frequency and the method. Very successful chief who's getting ready to retire after 41 years told me that he has very little interaction with the board, but he does regularly come and quarterly report on different projects and initiatives. I'd like to see us build a kind of a pattern of communicating at the broader level. And then, operationally, I'm always available to talk, but I would welcome a further discussion on how we move forward and how we communicate as we move forward. I don't have a concrete answer for you today. I think we should do it in partnership.
Through the chair.
Sure.
I like the idea of periodic reporting on kind of overview status, and if we can start building some metrics based on what we discussed, that would also help give a snapshot. And the strategic plan that you have on all these fronts, and then some of the other items that we talked about with Profinix, for example, Profinix software or Bodycam, the plan that you have, if we can get update on a periodic basis, and you can show us where it leads for completion and where you need support as well. Those type of interaction and communication, I think, will make it easier for being on the same page. that's, I think, something historically we haven't get to do as much. So I know we have the liaison relationship, but I think this is gonna help at least for broader, and also for the town to know and understand where you stand, where things are, and where there might be more focus needed. It's good for, I think, everyone to understand. Sometimes communication kind of with individual liaisons does targeted ones, but with larger reporting like this would help with broader communication, I think. Like the idea.
Thank you.
So also through the chair.
Yep.
So we've been talking about mostly about reporting, but I think the chair's initial question was kind of focusing on how do we prevent another gap, right? And I think once we fill the deputy and lieutenant roles, then we start having more promotions internally, and I think you have more qualified people capable of stepping into those roles, also with the cross-training that you're doing. So I think you'd have more capable people being able to fill in and initiate a process for formally hiring someone.
I think that's a clear objective. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a thought on that topic. Sure. If okay, through the chair. I'd thought of this since the last meeting, and I think based on something Muriel said too. Like, so things are always clear in hindsight, obviously, and I think had we known it would be such a long time that Porter was on leave before anything would happen with that, had we known it had been that long, we might have taken more interim steps to fill gaps, but we didn't know how long it would be, so that was hard. But in retrospect, perhaps we should have, even if we couldn't do promotions, perhaps we could have offered a stipend to people who were doing extra work, or just negotiated something. In case we run into a situation like that where there's a long wait, where we're kind of in limbo, but work still needs to be done. So anyway, that was just a thought, but it may not happen again for a long time.
Well, hopefully we don't, but I think one thing that, self-inspection, I probably should have asked for some interim positions. And that would have been helpful within the organization, would have been helpful to me, and it would have been the right thing to do by the people that stepped up.
I appreciate that, Chief. I actually had that same thought, but late in the game. I didn't think, I didn't necessarily think of it. Hindsight is always a little sharper, but when you have such big openings, it's really hard to maintain constructive functionality. This is true whatever organization you drop this into. And it puts a big strain, right? I can tie a connection to, reports of morale concerns and so forth to that big strain, right? So also maybe some mechanism for, and you may do this, so I don't mean to suggest that you don't do this, some mechanism whereby you, the model that jumps into my brain is not the right model, but like family meeting, right? You really are like a family in a police department, so that's why it drops into my brain. But using the talent that you have in-house to really problem solve the big issues that you're facing when you're facing really extraordinary issues. I mean, and is there a way that you can create a synergy or rely on the synergy that's already existing within your department to help drive your capacity and the department's capacity? It's just, it's just a thinking that I have.
And again, working together here, as you were speaking, I was thinking that those stay interviews might be a good opportunity for, get the stay interviews, develop the executive session, come together in even maybe an off-site location as equals and share and collaborate. And so that's just what I was thinking as you were speaking, Madam Chair.
Yeah, so, you know what, I would enthusiastically support some kind of outside of the ordinary team building exercise, an off-site, you know, I don't know exactly what it is, but those can be very, very effective. And they're also, they're a concrete benefit to people who have been working at a higher than their job level. I'm not saying that right, but you know what I mean.
I have had some conversation with Mr. Kamalo. We have a great resource, and Mr. Kamalo is, and Mr. Lazarus, and we'll discuss, look forward to discussing how we might bring in that resource and build on that.
I have one more
It's an
question.
external, it's a,
I'm sorry, say it again.
it's an external resource.
Great.
So,
Great, and if it's a resource that you feel some confidence in and could help you really, I have been a big proponent in the conversation for a couple of years, and not in a challenging way, of team building. Your team has been under a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress we're not going to talk about tonight. So,
we continue to be under stress.
yeah, no, I just.
We are facing, all of us, long-term conversations. And I think we together should do everything we can to support the team.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist right now, and I don't mean to sound that way. Sometimes it's hard to ask for help. I'm really talking individually. Like, we're all very capable people. I'm not really talking as a therapist, but it can be hard. You know, we're self-reliant, and as a department, we work hard, and your people work hard. It can be hard to ask for help, but it's critical. It's critical to be able to identify, as a leader of this department, to be able to identify where the stress points are, where the gaps are, where the needs are, and make sure, in the absence of internal, in this case, leadership structure, right, leadership depth on the bench at the leadership level to support you there, what you need to do to hold, you know, to keep the organization healthy as you then build your leadership team. I have one more question. How, as the leader of the department, do you lead change or acceptance of change within your department?
Well, beginning with change is inevitable. It's always ongoing. I've seen through my career a great deal of change in every aspect of law enforcement. From right down to the way we do with it, with the way we do our job in many levels. The expectations among our field are enormous. We're asked, I believe, to do way too many things, and that puts a great strain on the people delivering the services in the street. As far as change within the organization, you're always looking at changes in culture. There's potential changes in structure and responsibilities. So you have to try to stay knowledgeable of changes within the organization and knowledgeable of changes within the field and your workforce.
So I'm going to extend the question to, so the promotion process for the sergeants and now the lieutenant is the subject of a grievance or a potential grievance. And it is clear that the additional layer of process is a select board process. It's not internal to the contract. That process has stayed true, right? I reread it last night. We've gotten a couple letters on it. Our process is to make sure we have an opportunity to respectfully and individually engage with each of the candidates in a way that isn't necessarily public if it's important for us to just maintain a level of courtesy as we're exchanging with individual candidates for promotion. So how do you help your department and us bridge that conversation and allow for a new process from the select board to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in a way that is respectful.
I'm walking a tight line here.
I know.
Right.
Welcome to leadership.
Well, you know, there's the open grievance. So I would stay to, yes, we have an internal policy. It's been followed. It states I will take these certain actions. They've been done. I will bring forward those actions to you. As far as not discussing the grievance points here tonight, I think that the union is always is open to conversation on policies. It's ongoing with us, and if we were going to visit those policies, we would collaborate with them and work together, bring in the town's desired outcomes and the union's desired concerns together and develop a policy that brings both parties together, and that's my role is to facilitate that as well with the town manager's office.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, we're not suggesting changing your internal policies. The contractual policies stand and,
Oh,
yeah.
understood. Yeah, understood.
Mr. Camillo.
This time, the summary will take a different form. I think I think the last 15, 20 minutes have been great in terms of identifying future improvements. However, in terms of the how, I just have 4 questions for the board. Very quickly, quick answers. First question being, in dealing with the promotions issue, comment on the chief contributing new ideas, improvements, or suggestions. Just quick answers from the board.
What do we think the chief could do to improve this
No,
process?
how he performed in that regard. Yes.
Feedback on
Yes,
how we
yeah.
performed in that regard.
He.
I don't understand the question. That's clear. I've
Exactly.
lost the thread.
Yeah. As part of the evaluation, we have to address how he delivered on each goal. In terms of this goal, the focus has been largely on the improvements to be made. But for the record, I just want to ask the board 4 quick questions on how he did, beginning July 1, 2023 to now. The first question being comment on the chief contributing new ideas, suggestions, and improvements to the promotion challenges. Just quick answers.
So I thought he did really well. He presented 2 candidates for sergeant shortly after July 1st. That was delayed by the board, but I think he did well.
Okay.
I would agree. I think he did well, and I also see the strategic thinking that how he presented the phased approach, and as Ifan mentioned, there was reasons for delay. So I liked the approach, how kind of going through the training and building up to those leadership roles and then opening it up. So within that time, I've certainly seen that, and I think that was a good strength or demonstration of strength. The other thing I also, I lost my thought, but other thing I also was going to talk about is, it'll come back, but, I remember. So the other thing was perhaps, asking for help is also going to help in the challenges you face sometimes. And I think that's also part of the overall kind of being on the same page, because we heard about some of the challenges, some of the struggles because of ongoing investigations for compliance and others. And I like how you navigated driftly with your leadership and expertise, because those are very delicate matters. But I also would suggest and like to see how you can seek out for help with other constituencies, the board, the town manager, or legal counsel. You probably had legal counsel help. But that is something that could also be helpful in the process, should it, in future, something to remember.
So I'm very clearly on the record that I see this as a failure in the last 6 months. It was indeed your job to make sure we saw progress on this. And frankly, we didn't see real progress, any progress, and then saw immediate progress once I made sure it was a public concern, so.
Thank you.
Okay. So I thought he did pretty well given the circumstances, but that in retrospect, things could have been done differently, maybe to fill gaps in the interim. Sorry. I thought the chief did pretty well on this, considering the circumstances and the stresses on the department over the last year. But in retrospect, I think we can all see areas for improvement in the processes, and it did drag out a long time.
I think one of the things I found helpful this time was to be able to look at the individual's records with the department. It tells you something about their history, and it helped make the decision, which we did not do in the past. And then being able to speak to the individuals, if necessary, when we wanted to, ahead of time sometimes, and to ask some questions, and then come clear with our decision at the night of promotion.
So, Mary Jo, just to be clear, I appreciate your comments, so this is not a challenge. That's the very process that is new that we're doing, that the union is grieving, right? So how can we work together? I guess that would be the question we don't have to ask it tonight, but we need a way to work together to make sure that new process that we're building confidence in
Because
is
it
the
does
go-forward
help.
process.
It does help.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next question is, as we were dealing with the gaps in the promotion, how did you see the chief improving the work environment for his team?
Well,
You want to start, Mary Jo?
Well, I just went through the tour of the police department, and it was a mess. And nobody's even mentioned that from the water damage. I mean, they weren't even able to use offices and a good part of the second floor, and they were using a storage room to put everybody in, and it wasn't a good work environment, and that has changed as of just recently, and now people are back and settled, and it was a hard place to bring new people into, this awful room where everybody was, and I'm glad to see that process is made. That's nobody's fault. They had water damage, but it made for a tough atmosphere, and nobody even said good job during this really tough transition, and so I do want to compliment them on that, and I can, there's this problem of rank and file and lieutenants and sergeants, and people feel entitled sometimes if they work for a job long enough. They feel, because they've been there so long, and part of the rank and file, and they've been there, that they feel entitled to a promotion. Well, that's all well and good, but it's not necessarily true. So we really have to decide what other aspects of a personality of a person, besides as I said before, besides just time served, has to be part of the curriculum for advancement.
Thank you.
Amy.
Okay, can you repeat the question again? Because now I have lost the thread. But is what we saw him do during the gaps, is that what?
Yes, as we were experiencing the gaps in the promotions, how did you see the chief improving the work environment for his team?
Yeah, so we don't get involved in the day-to-day operations of the team so much, but I did see that even during the gaps, when we would be promoting someone for an academy officer, a lot of the other police officers would come and support their fellow, the new recruit, and I thought that was a really good sign that they were happy to come. And then they came and did a school resource officer presentation for us in the fall, I think it was, that was really well organized and put together, coordinated with the schools. So I thought that was another good positive team building thing. And anytime the chief comes before us after there's been some incident, like the car hit the house or 2 houses on Grove Street, the fire chief and police chief do always come and they give credit to the officers who were there on the scene that day and who did the good work. So I thought those were all positive things that were happening to recognize extra work that was being done during the gaps, even though maybe in retrospect we should have also offered some stipend of some kind. But those are good positive signs that I saw.
I'm also on the record as seeing this as a failure, and I had the opportunity as the liaison to revisit this both in public meetings, but also whenever we met, and didn't see progress for your team. And I just would be remiss not to say that in that time, we know that you understood that your department, your sergeants were struggling and unhappy with it, and we still didn't see progress. So that is, in my mind, that's a deep failing.
I haven't seen at operational level, and I think that according to charter is not part of our responsibility to go at operational level, but to understand through your eyes, through our liaison's eyes, and through our feedback mechanism that we have. So overall, I would echo what Amy has stated. I felt that I see happy faces. I see you always promoting the police officers and your deputies or your sergeants whenever they're here, whenever we see you at events and others. And that shows a camaraderie that I have sensed to be positive, and I think that's a great practice as a leader. And in the events that we have here, I see, and I'm always happy and look forward to those events when I see all the officers, their families, everyone comes together and establishes that is the culture you have promoted internally and also visibly, that it is a family and operates and works and feels and works with each other with that culture and value in mind. That said, I think my other part is always data metrics and goal-driven. So along the lines that I mentioned earlier, it would be good to understand and through your and the framework, that operational framework that you practice and follow, to see some of those metrics or some of the goals, some of which we are seeing, but something for the future to think about, that since these questions are being asked, as the chair mentioned as well, that how to best reflect on those, how to best establish those. Otherwise, often it becomes, not healthy when it becomes through rumors or it becomes through some judgments. So those are something that is substantial and, in many ways gives the unbiased view of things. But overall, from my perspective and what I have experienced, heard, and I spoke to some of the stakeholders, key personnel, ex-officers, current, I heard good things. And looking at the camaraderie, I feel good that it is positive and it's looking good. So I appreciate that. But there's always room to think for more.
Thank you.
So I believe the question was how this gap impacted,
It's a different question, I think.
please repeat for me.
Yeah, by the time it comes to you.
It seems to have kind of varied.
As we're experiencing the gap in the promotions, how did you feel the chief addressed the work environment for his team?
So, I mean, I echo with what everyone else has said here, but I do see this as an area that needs improvement. Because anytime you force a workload, an additional workload without pay compensation or recognition, it's not pleasant for the person that's taking on the extra roles. But I think it's an area for improvement and lessons learned.
And then the last question, how do you feel the chief communicated the promotions gap to the board, the community, and his team?
Start with you, Irfan.
All right. So I'd say it was an area that would also needs improvement because, you know, we really didn't learn about, we weren't kept in the loop as to where things were. I understand there were overriding issues within the department, but as it had been a goal, it should have, you know, an area of improvement would be communication as to where are we?
Understood.
Yeah, I would agree on that as well, that we didn't, and time flies, there were so many things happening, but we need a consistent communication, and that's where we talked about the periodic review is going to help, or overview, in terms of progress or any roadblocks and how we can help each other or provide better direction or guidance when needed, or you need any type of help. But I felt also that for quite some time didn't have full visibility or understanding on the progress. So more communication would certainly help.
Understood and agreed.
Yeah, so I'm on the record. My issue isn't really with the communication. We heard about it several times, and I had the opportunity to ask about it several more times. It was the lack of action that I have the issue with.
Great.
Amy?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought Norma was about to say something.
We haven't gone the whole way.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would agree there was not much communication really at all with the public about it, or probably with staff, but at the same time, there were a lot of things that we couldn't say, or there are still things we can't say. So it's really a huge challenge. So I don't know if there could have been another way to explain things that people could have understood without telling them things that are not public. Yeah, so I guess, but I saw it was a real challenge to do, and I don't know, I'm still not quite sure how it could have been handled exactly differently.
Joe?
It has been difficult. This time period has been really difficult. It's been difficult for all of us. I mean, I've many times wanted to say what I wanted to say, and I said, well, I can't do that. And, you know, you just sit here and keep yourself quiet as much as possible while people say all these things about you, and it's not necessarily true, but that's why we have a 5-man board, so that we, you know, come up with a decision. And I believe in the laws, and I'm not, you know, and I will adhere to them, and that's all I can do. So it is difficult, and I don't think it can be done any other way, because the district attorneys are involved, and people tell us what we can and can't do, and that's the law, and that's it. We're stuck. So So I feel bad. I feel bad for the general public. I feel bad that we can't be broad and open all the time, but we can't. And you know, that's the simple end of it. And when it comes to now, I just want to say with recruiting lieutenants and moving up the line, I would like to see, we get the information that we get from new recruits, and it's just about what you can get from new recruits. But when it comes to promotions, I would like to see a larger scope of the person's career. And if we're not going to be able to read the records and for them to expound upon their own experiences and things like that, I would like to have a longer process for that. That's all.
Mr. Conroy, what did you hear?
Through the chair, I'm actually turning to Jessica. I believe the questions gave us the summary. I believe the answers to the questions gave us the summary.
Is that a question or is that a statement?
Statement?
Did the answers to the question give the summary that you need?
In terms of what he has.
In terms of this goal. Yes.
Or do we need to clarify anything? So we're asking.
Here's what I heard. In terms of the promotions chief, this is an area that requires improvement. The improvement can focus on processes, alignment in terms of the different phases and roles involved. And last but not least, acting timely. That would be my summary.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the performance expectations across the areas of the contract, so it's just listed and there's just one bullet next to it. So for command management of any type of police service incident, safe town and opportunities to improve managing visible events, budgetary financial administration, excellent progress, personnel administration, team building is in progress, supervision, leadership, managing through crisis and leadership and morale need improvement. Staff development and training, good progress on staff development and training, but needs tracking or metrics. Public relations needs further development. Policy execution, inadequate policy implementation. Examples include drug and alcohol testing policy, accreditation, ProPhoenix, body-worn cameras, and department evaluation. And then interaction with the town manager and board, as well as other governmental officials, boards, committees, and the general public on target interactions with the board and town manager. So any questions or comments? I'll start with Irfan.
So really, my only comment is I think we've gone over all of this through the evaluation process. So yeah, I mean, I don't see why we'd really need to expand on this. I don't have anything to.
You don't have any questions?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. I think we covered through our conversation most of these, and in the additional comments also it came about. So nothing more to add to this one.
Okay. Amy?
I think the only thing I was going to add about the policy implementation, I know we are behind on several things here, but I am really hopeful now that we're getting close to full staffing that will be an area where improvement can happen going forward, because these are all things we want implemented, and it has been challenging with the staffing issues.
Mary Jo?
Well, I just want to compliment the police department on the budgetary and financial administration. They're never late. They always have their ducks in a row, and you know, we have a town meeting, we have schedule, and they've never held us up, and I appreciate that very much.
Okay, I would like to ask how we are going to constructively address inadequate policy implementation so that in 3 months, when you have your next review with this board that won't include me, how we're going to measure the necessary progress, which means, in my mind, that we have to set benchmarks and goals, and we have to report out on them. So how are we going to do that, Chief?
For policy implementation?
Yes.
So as I've spoken to, we are an accredited agency. We are working towards a version 6 accreditation, which brought about many changes that touched policies in some significant ways and some simply renumbering and rebulleting. And there is a team in place to work on that. I'm meeting with a vendor soon. I've been in conversation and haven't set a date, but to get to that right after the marathon, to bring that vendor in, and will be a great source for us in both ensuring conformance as well as I believe it to be something that I'll bring before you to educate you at a deeper level on the process, and I could bring that in. We could do that on a periodic basis as we move forward. As far as benchmarks, the clearest benchmark is to be in compliance with the post regulations. I believe we are about to receive notice that we are compliant with post. I believe we are, but that formal, in conversations today with Detective Sergeant Van Ralton, who's been working with the commission, he explained that we're very close to getting that. So establishing benchmarks, I think what we could do is target, since once we know we're post-compliance, I think we should first target any remaining low-frequency, high-risk policies, address those. Use of force is one of them, but that's complete. What I would ask for your consideration is if we could have a discussion at some point on what that looks like. With hundreds of policies, what was done in the past is policies were written and implemented. Some policies, I feel, and we spoke to this, need to go to other people, including those stakeholders, for instance, the schools relative to school resource, human resources relative to recruitment, selection, and hiring, and all those processes. And I think that I would like to formalize somehow amongst us. Normally, I would do this with the town manager's office. What kind of outlining, these are our buckets of policies. Which ones can we collaborate with the union and use the standards and implement? And which ones do we want going to legal for review? And which ones do you directly want to interact with? You do have an opportunity for feedback, and I want to respect that. But I don't know if you want to be reviewing a basic policy like we have to outline our geographic area, and do we want to be sending that to legal? So I think we should definitely communicate and work together with that. And then I want to understand how, moving forward, you would expect me to do that. Traditionally, most of that would go through the town manager's office, and if you want a more active role, I want to support that.
So I would suggest that when I think about it, I think about it a couple of levels down. You've given us an overview often, but what I think that you need and what you need to be able to report to whenever you're interacting either with the town manager or the board are the breakdown of the steps. what it is that it is going to take to achieve success with each of these policies. For example, one of them could be a review process with the board that you just outlined, and we'd be, speaking for the future board, we'd be interested in supporting you on that, right? But you're going to have to design the steps needed to operationalize that, to make that actionable, and then report on progress in a way that people can see over time. And also you. I mean, that's the only way I can imagine managing the work myself, but some mechanism for really sort of benchmarking the underneath steps, everything that's going to make the work rise to the success mark.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I just want to interject. I think, having a kind of laid out plan on each of those, how and what are the paths, activities that you may need to do to reach out, having that would certainly help, and getting feedback on that when you have some roadblocks or something, how we can help. And for each of those, maybe the stakeholders, or as you're saying, the people who are going to help review or approve or accept are a little bit different. So kind of build those working groups for each of those in your mind and drive through them and making them aware. And also, if you don't hear any response or something gets stuck somewhere, escalate it or bring it to larger attention, to our attention when we talk about the boards, about the reviews. That way we can also help on those, because I bet there's a lot involved in the process, and especially going through so many stakeholders and getting everyone on the same page. That said, I'm also happy to see that these are above and beyond the post-foundational requirements in many cases, as I heard and as I have seen. So that's, I think, something we always have encouraged, and we always have wanted to see progress and institutionalized in our police department. So we just need all our hands together to get it done. And last one, for my understanding, is there any type of benchmarking across towns in terms of these type of policies? For example, body cams in the neighboring 6 or 8, and it's great. I mean, we definitely want to do that. Where do we stand, and where others are from a industry perspective?
So, if I understand the question, where do we stand in relation to body cams comparatively to other communities?
To other communities. Body cams is an example, but I, in general, wanted to understand that, are we near the median? I mean, obviously, we are foundationally solid, but a lot of these are aspirational, a lot of these are, we want to be, the best, and we are the best, we think. So how do we measure if we say there are 10 policies that will take us to that nirvana state, and out of the 6 towns that we want to compare with, this town has done 4 out of 6, out of 10, and we are targeting 10 out of 10. That will give us, kind of the peripheral view of things as well, to know that, are we falling behind, are we ahead, and will also help us improve in the future should we need to.
Thank you. And maybe going back to our earlier conversation, as we interact with other communities, we could develop some core questions. Where are they in different initiatives, and how do they get there? So maybe we could use that process to feed that.
And more nuts and bolts, those are all good ideas, but, it's great to know where other communities are, to benchmark ourselves, for example, on body-worn cameras, but we had a date certain that they were supposed to be done. When we know that it's not going to happen, there needs to be a reporting mechanism so that there can be troubleshooting and lean in from all the applicable agencies. So we don't track your deadlines. I got into trying to figure it out, but we missed them, right? All of those targets, we missed them. So the department needs a mechanism whereby you understand at a critical point in the path when you're not going to be able to meet it, and report out why and what the corrective action is that you plan to take or you need help with.
I understand. And one of the things I think that we need to all work together on is communication, because we need to all be on the same page when setting priorities. Tonight, we've outlined a lot of work to be done, and I think we should, however you want to do that, prioritize these things.
I had a suggestion along those lines, if that's okay. But I was just thinking how the town manager does his town manager report for us every week, and sometimes it's briefer than others. But maybe once a month you could give us a police chief projects report on just the status of each of these, because I think we all understand sometimes things are outside of our control, like those transformers from Eversource, like every week there's no progress, then they're not here, and it's frustrating, but just getting that update is helpful. And I can see in what you've submitted to us now that the Pro Phoenix, after you uploaded the historical data, it keeps crashing. And so that's not your fault. You're working with the vendor to get that fixed. But just so we know the reason and you know that you guys are on it. I think that could be helpful. Not every week, but maybe once a month, the project's status quickly.
I think that will help towards the quarterly meetings too as well. Set some issues aside, or you come in with a better understanding and we can be more focused on areas of need.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Kamala?
I believe, Jessica, what I heard is that the summary is pointed out under item number 4. I think the board is in agreement with overall. I did not hear any changes that are substantive that will require us to adjust this section.
Say that again. You didn't hear any changes?
No, I heard that there were discussions about what could be done differently.
Yeah.
However, I don't see it requiring a change in the wording that is used for A through H.
Yeah, so I will say that A through H is so top level that that's challenging for me.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to like dig in and provide changes, but more depth. Those are actually the biggest pieces and got the least landscape and least comment. So that I guess that's a piece of feedback for the future, is that's where I'd want to see. If I was doing the job, which I won't be in the future, I'd want to see more landscape devoted to the actual expectations per the chief's contract.
Yeah, in fact, that's a very good point. We had an extended discussion in the office in terms of how best we could handle this section. We thought about giving the topics as we did, and then inserting examples, and we moved away from that idea. So one improvement could be state the topic and then identify the examples that illustrate the language in the topic.
And this is an area where I think that there is substantial improvement needs to happen, particularly in just the actual work of the day, benchmarking your work, planning your work, reporting your work, and achieving target goals.
But not the day-to-day work, right? Because that's not, but the projects, for sure.
Yes, this is the major work stream. I appreciate that clarification. The major work streams that are your responsibility for your department to see how you are benchmarking, how we're making progress, and what we need to do so we don't miss target dates. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does. So again, we could do this even this year, i.e. insert the examples under each A, B, C, A through H. We have those examples already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't necessarily want to
Okay.
extend this process.
Okay.
I think that is definitely an improvement for the future.
okay.
If it was my performance evaluation, I presume you provided them to the chief? I'd want the examples for my own use.
Oh, for each of our individual ones, you mean?
No, so the examples under those A, B, C, and D, is that something you would want? The examples that were provided under those A through H categories?
Any guidance and suggestions and feedback, I would be welcome to and appreciate.
So Mira, are you asking for, because I did put examples under each of them when I filled out my thing.
That's
Is
what
that
I
you're
think.
saying?
That's
Or
what I think
or
I'm
what we said
hearing.
tonight?
That's what
Okay.
I think I'm hearing is that this was a very, we call it like thin slice of what the feedback came from everybody, right? And so more depth in that. I would think, I would want to see that next time. I don't want to delay this process, but I would think that anybody who's being reviewed would want to see the depth of that. And I think I just heard that you would welcome receiving it.
When we move forward?
Yes, but you would get those more detailed examples provided to you that came in.
As we move forward or tonight?
Yeah. No, right, not to extend this process, but you get the information.
Yes.
That's, okay.
But I would not like to see the process extended.
No, we are all in agreement on that. No, 100%. But there's value in the feedback, I would think.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment on.
So the additional comments, I'll just read them quickly. I think that I've looked ahead, and many of them I think have been talked about. The chief has demonstrated leadership during the last couple of years by steering the department during difficult situations. His presence at the community events and organizing police events with the community projects is a positive impact and image of the department. With progress in hiring, now focus needs to be more on retention. A periodic employee survey and feedback mechanism would be helpful for ongoing pulse checking and new opportunities. Need to continue to focus on the new deputy chief and lieutenant hiring and training and complete the ongoing succession plan. With some of the recent challenging situations, despite progress, some key projects seem to have slowed down. Chief will now need to focus on these more closely. Also, there are some additional areas that came up from the community that may need special attention as below. Plan and timely execution of the body cameras. Seek stakeholder help from the board, the town manager as needed. Completion of ProPhoenix software setup. Explore and plan for GPS enablement in cars as appropriate. Review all protocols to bring them up to date as needed. Establish a more robust communication framework with the select board and town manager for periodic progress reviews and foster more collaboration. So Shahadul, I'll give you first swing.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is that expected in 3 months?
Is what expected in 3 months?
That, all of that, or those are goals?
These are additional comments that came in that didn't, I have to believe they were all part of the actual categories, but they didn't fall neatly into what was summarized. Is that what we understand? Yeah. So it's not, this is not an expectation. This isn't like a work piece. This was a summary of additional comments. You have this.
Yes.
Yes. So I just to put it back in
I just don't want to
every.
leave tonight with an expectation that I can accomplish that in 3 months.
No, and I didn't, I don't think I put any time on it either, but yes.
Thank you.
I appreciate the clarification. Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you for reading. Actually, the additional comments were mostly written by me in these. And I can give the context of my writing this. But along those lines, it's essentially that I tried to summarize all the conversations and move to the future, how we want to see the progress and where. So these are mostly what we talked about, right? So to summarizing that, you had certainly shown leadership and your expertise in running the department through this difficult situation and difficult times. We certainly appreciate that. And with progress in hiring now, as I mentioned earlier, I want to see more retention focus, more measurement of, satisfaction, morale, all those good things. And certainly, we see the continued focus and closure of the deputy chief lieutenant hiring, and then the succession plan that we mentioned. And overall, and again, these are covered other places. I didn't have any other place to put in, because of the structure a little bit. So the body cam we hired, and we also hired and talked about the ProPhoenix software. I know there was some glitch that we encountered, how we can overcome that and implement those. And there were questions raised about the GPS and other. I didn't fully analyze if the appropriateness or the efficacy and the practice, but something, since it's came up, would like to hear your thoughts or the department's evaluation of that and what we can do about that in future. And on those notes, we also, and I tried to include some of the things we heard from the community, so you are aware, and we can work together to address those as needed. So one was that there are some protocols that appear to be out of date with names and contacts. So what is the review process? How can we keep them up to date? And, hopefully not, but there can be, some slips and misses. But two things. One is, what can we learn from it? First is, how can we address and remediate it? And then what can we learn from it? And what are the measures and practice we can do going forward so it doesn't happen? And then finally, the communication that we all talked about, and I think I like the idea that having a periodic, every 3-month review or 2 months review, whatever makes sense, and we have, key items, key metrics. Eventually, we build some of those we talked about, some we can build together, and the plans for some of the key items that we talked about. And the plan doesn't have to be 3 months. Actually, I would like it to see it, 12 months, 18 months as appropriate. And 3 months too for the ones that are near, so far near and now. That's the concept. Based on that, we can discuss periodically 2-3 months and see where the progress is and be on the same page. I think being on the same page is something we all learned from this process or this media review as well, that how can we be more in lockstep and help each other, help the department to continue your success.
Thank you.
I really have nothing to add. I mean, I think we've spoken about this throughout the evening. Everything has been kind of really fleshed out. So really not much to add.
Amy.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to add. I think we've discussed everything.
Mary Jo.
I don't really have anything to add. I just want to say that going through this process, I think I have a better appreciation for the complex and complicated job that you do. And I thank you for going through the process with us.
Thank you.
So I do have a question about the GPS enablement. Is there any reason why we wouldn't do that?
I don't see any reason. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do it. I put a survey out to all the chiefs asking if someone had it to provide policies. I've started collecting policies. It's a blend of written into the contract, and I've only had 4 responses, which is unusual. Some have it as a device in the car that just collects information, and certain triggers trigger the recovery of the information. And some have it as it's a board where you see every car on the screen. So it's very broad. Why we wouldn't, I don't see that as being as significant as how we roll it out. And as we talk about, a lot of these policies touch on very sensitive issues for employees. For instance, the body-worn cameras, we're working through that. I've gotten a great deal of feedback from the union on that. I feel what they're expressing for concerns and suggestions are valid, and some of the suggestions are very positive. But as far as GPS goes, we would do the same process. We would meet with the union, identify any concerns, and roll out GPS at a price point and return that was a good return on investment.
Is the GPS ability not part of the ProPhoenix?
GPS ability is part of the ProPhoenix, it is.
Okay, so it's not something we already own? This is a real question.
What it is
Tracker to go.
what I'm seeing from the returns, some have add-on costs. But what Pro Phoenix has is, and I can't speak to what other departments are doing with it currently, but it would have the ability to, with the GPS activated, to give turn-by-turn directions. But we would have to talk about what gets retained for information, how long is it retained, when is it looked at, and those are all issues that police departments have resolved, and we could work through it.
Yeah, there has to be a model out there, because there just has to be. But I understood.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There have to be models out there.
Oh, absolutely. Since this conversation started, I've been talking.
Yeah, I understood it to be part and parcel of the Pro Phoenix. I could have that wrong, and it wasn't something we had to purchase something more about. It's just implementing it. Do we have to make an additional purchase to have GPS
Do
capability?
we have trackers in the car already, or is it something we have to buy?
So there is the technology. We have modems in the car that could be activated.
Yeah.
They're in the
We have Pro Phoenix, which could provide GPS. So I don't know. I'll share with you. I've just embarked on the research part of it. The Pro Phoenix rollout is staggered, and that's been pushed back. As I said, we're just now getting our conversion. We're working with it. We were the first in the state, and we've done a lion's share of the first full rollout using everything of Pro Phoenix. We've done a lion's share of a lot of work that was done to bring it into the state fully. And we'll now, one thing that I would report on, Director Durad has taken a model from a prior software vendor that we were partnered with since the 90s of having a user group, and they've created a user group that will work together. So Pro Phoenix will hear from all the cities and towns that are in, and they'll work to establish the priorities for implementation. So I'm hoping for future towns that their rollout will be smoother, but they're very receptive and they're always there. Now we'll be moving past the records management phase, the operational police phase, computer-aided dispatch phase, and we'll move them into the cars. And I can report back on that functionality in greater depth later.
If I could.
Yeah,
But, and you didn't mention this part, but I'm sure it's on your mind too, about the redaction of data in the GPS. Because once we are tracking GPS, people can make a public records request for it. And then just like some crimes don't appear in a police log for redaction reasons, there'll be, that a car was at a certain house sometimes can't be shared, correct? So that's a big process too. And I know it's an issue with the body cams too. Some footage, even though we will be recording it, can't be shared. But it's harder to redact video than it is.
There are some complex issues, but it's not insurmountable.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Camello, what did you hear? I don't want to forget.
What I heard is that the board is comfortable with the summary as provided. There are no additions to be made.
I would agree with that.
The only thing that I've been thinking about in these last 5 minutes is what we owe in return, right? Communication is a reciprocal thing, and I just heard the chief ask about how to prioritize all that we talked about tonight. So I think that that's an action item for us to take home and provide some input into priorities that are ours to make. Some of them aren't ours to make. Some of them are yours to make, right? But so that would be a future conversation too. But I think that we should all, if you agree, make sure we have that information for the packet, not to bring you back necessarily, but for the packet because it's public information at our next meeting so that we can provide it to you. The public is aware of what we provided. Certainly you would be invited to exchange with it. I'm just saying I don't necessarily think that it has to be a big conversation unless you want to do that. I mean, I want the ongoing conversation, so anytime you want to come before us and talk about that, it's fine, but I thought just to get priorities into you, but tell me what you think, what would be the best, what would make the most sense?
Whatever the appropriate forum is, if you were to collaboratively establish your priorities, and then I feel comfortable that I would always be given the opportunity to give you any additional information that I might say, want to offer that a certain priority needs to be advanced. As long as I'm comfortable, I would have that opportunity to offer more information.
Sounds about right to me.
I just want to make sure that that makes sense to me. There's an awful lot of conversation talked about.
Yeah.
It's hard to synthesize. None of us know what the priorities will eventually be from this board because we've all been listening to the same conversation. So there's no way the chief can know without us putting some work into that.
I agree. I think we owe him a deliverable on our priorities, and I think the chief has stated very, very well stated. There are going to be times where other things need to be prioritized, and as long as he lets us know, I think it works for me.
Through the chair, I think two things. One is that the summary that Norman and Jessica are going to help, that'll be one package, right? I mean, we discussed and you had summarized, so that is going to be in some shape or form, or
Yeah, this is draft, so we'll get a final, right?
so that's one.
Respectfully, here's the suggestion. There's a reason why we provided this draft, albeit, yes, we provided it late. There's a reason why at the end of each goal, we summarized and it's recorded. My recommendation respectfully to the board is to remove a motion to authorize the chair and the HR director to finalize as was discussed tonight.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
So that was the first one. So that's now.
And then just to my suggestion that we do some work to help prioritize or to help speak to our priorities for the next 3 or 6 months. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. My thinking is the conversation does not end here. When the document is summarized, the chair will sit down with the chief and then work out a plan in terms of how the board and the chief will work on developing the priorities.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I don't hate that.
Because,
I had 2 points. So I talked about the first one, and I wanted to touch on the second one. if I
Sure.
may.
Oh, yeah.
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 So the second one is that the priorities that we are talking about, we have collected. I hear you saying that we want to take a homework and bring the priorities and discuss. I wasn't very clear on that, but I think we discussed enough priorities, or a lot of priorities tonight. And some of those are immediate, which are already in your goals for the rest of the year. But if there are thoughts to change those, we should talk about that and communicate it clearly so the expectations are clear. And then there are some that are our long-term or near-term goals. So for those, I think I like the idea that we all bring, or someone summarizes it from this discussion. And then at some point, we get to discuss that with you and get your feedback as well and set those priorities for longer term. And then what I think would be a good communication plan is having that far near now plan on the board when we meet every few months periodically and see where things are and which ones you want to tackle next from the long one or far ones. That's just my thought on that.
So let me see if I'm clear. So we are going to finalize the summary for this. Yes, we talked about a lot of priorities. What I was thinking is that we would not change them, but just capture them so that we're all saying the same thing. right? You and I heard different things in the conversation. Just capture it if there are priorities that we can provide that are helpful to the chief. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Right? Communication is this tricky thing, and you said it, I don't let me put words in your mouth, that there was a lot talked about tonight, and what are the priorities? I just think that there's an ongoing conversation to help shape that, if that is helpful. So.
Yes. Communication is, I think we all agree, is a big focus going forward.
Okay. Anything else?
Want to take this opportunity?
Subject?
Hold on.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mine is a totally different subject. A week from, we don't have another meeting between now and the marathon, which is a week from Monday. And I just wanted to remind the people of the town that we're going to have a children's road race. There's going to be a little entertainment, I believe, on the common. And there's going to be some vendors again this year. And we really would like the town to come out and support the activities that might be going on over the weekend. And last night we had a lovely time with the BAA and the Arts Cultural Council and 26.2 and the Marathon Committee and us and Mural, and the board accepted some wonderful gifts to the town on the evening of their 100th anniversary. The race has been 100 years as of this year, and we want to celebrate, and you'll be seeing some of those things as they come into town that we were given, and I really want to see people participate. That's all.
I do have the gifts, but I don't have the right car with me. I didn't even take them into my house for two reasons. I don't want them to get lost. My husband would meet me at the door and tell me that they can't come into the house. But I have the wrong car. I will bring them to Town Hall. Lovely gifts. So, yeah, really nice event. Mr. Kamala, back to you.
Yeah, we at Town Hall value feedback. As an organization, we have prioritized performance conversations on a very regular basis with employees. We at Town Hall work under various legislative regimes, beginning with we have union contracts. They do define how performance evaluations are conducted for union employees. We also have non-union employees. Their performance evaluations are conducted under the employee handbook. We also have contracted positions: town manager, police chief, and fire chief. As an organization, we are a learning organization. We are always looking for opportunities to improve processes. As we know, and I think generally it's accepted that unlike in the private sector, when we have to conduct performance evaluations in public, it becomes very awkward. And combining that with the fact that we're a learning organization, yes, at times it's going to look clumsy, it's going to look messy. However, I want to take the opportunity now to thank the board for staying with what you needed to do as a board. I want to thank the police chief and your team for contributing immensely to how we got to this point. I want to thank the assistant town manager as well as the new HR director also for dedicating their time, insights towards getting us to this point. I also want to reach out to the community and thank the community for its input. We did receive a ton of feedback from the community. Again, as I always share with my colleagues at Town Hall, we work in the public sector. We are accountable to the community. And at various points, the community will always tell us what it thinks about our performance. I have shared with my colleagues that, yes, some moments it's going to be painful, but we need to find a way to deal with the realities of the work that we do. Again, I want to thank the board for staying the course. I want to thank the chief for your patience. I want to thank your team for contributing to this process. I want to thank the town hall staff that make performance evaluations what they are here. We're learning organization, and there will always be opportunities to learn from some of the mistakes we make.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norman.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. Elaine. Thank you.